All right, it's 10 o'clock on the dot, so we are going to get started. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking your time to be here. In this webinar format, you'll be able to see and hear me, but we cannot see and hear you. Following this webinar today, we will be sending out a recording and a follow-up survey. We appreciate your feedback as it helps us know what we're doing well and what we can improve in the future. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please place them in the Q&A box on the bottom toolbar. It looks like two chat boxes next to one another, and I will address all of the questions at the end. So my name is April Myerscough. I'm the Public Programs Coordinator here with Florida Humanities, and I am the point person for all of your book festival grant needs. Today, we are going to cover information about our organization and some definitions of the humanities. Then we will go through the tenets of the grant and finish up with how to create a successful application and then address all of your questions. So Florida Humanities was established in 1973 as the state affiliate for the National Endowment for the Humanities. Our mission is to preserve, promote, and share the history, literature, culture, and personal stories that offer Floridians a better understanding of themselves, their communities, and their state. So you may be wondering, what exactly are the humanities? Our definition of the humanities is that it is the process of pursuing an understanding of our shared human experience. Through the exploration of the humanities, we learn how to think creatively, to reason, and to ask questions. So here are some of the disciplines situated within the humanities. Of course, this isn't a comprehensive list by any means, but the most relevant ones for everyone here today are literature and poetry. These disciplines can be used as the focus of discussions or a jumping off point for discussions about other topics at your festival. So you may be thinking that beyond book festivals being a celebration of literature, the humanities may not turn up. However, by facilitating conversations about literature between authors and authors and authors and readers and readers and readers, you are helping conduct and share the humanities. These discussions can foster meaningful connections with all genres of literature, whether it be fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, mystery, even graphic novels and comics. So now I'm going to move on to discuss the grant itself. Book festival grants award up to $10,000 to support the execution of public book festivals across the state that celebrate the joy of reading, facilitate interactions between authors and readers, and encourage an appreciation of Florida's literary landscape. Book festival programming may occur on one day or over multiple days, virtually, in person, or hybrid. And if you're not sure what hybrid is, hybrid includes a mixture of in-person and virtual elements at the same time, such as live streaming an event on Facebook while people attend in person, or filming an event and posting it later on a video sharing platform, again, while people attend in person. Festival programming may also include authors from or residing in Florida, or authors residing outside of Florida or from another state. So Florida Humanities defines book festivals as events that offer the public opportunities to interact and discuss literature with authors and illustrators who have meaningfully contributed to Florida's literary landscape. Events should be free or have a minimal attendance fee. We understand with large-scale events like this, you may charge a small fee for the headlining events like keynotes, but we ask that it be non-prohibitive for your area. Eligible festivals can appeal to all ages and demographics, and that includes age-specific festivals such as those for younger readers. Festivals can also celebrate and host discussions about one genre or multiple genres, including any sort of fiction and nonfiction subgenres. We don't have any requirements. So some of the events that occur during what we consider to be an eligible book festival can include author and illustrator talks and signings, author and illustrator panels and discussions, writing workshops, and keynote addresses. What we have on the screen is not a comprehensive list, but some of the elements that Florida Humanities is looking for in a fundable application. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis, but all applications must be submitted no later than 4 months prior to the event. Florida Humanities will notify applicants within 30 days of submission whether they have been approved or denied funding. Funded organizations receive 90% of their awarded funds at the start of the project, and the remaining 10% as a reimbursement with receipt and approval of a final report. Contracts for grantees cover the 3 months before the event to 30 days after the last grant-funded activities, so you can complete final reports with assistance. Specific dates and lengths of contract will vary applicant to applicant, as we understand some festivals span a whole month worth of activities or just 1 day, and contracts reflect that those differences. I have to say as well, just because an organization applies for a certain amount of money and they're funded, they may not be funded for the total amount they request. So all Florida-based organizations constituted for nonprofit purposes, including colleges and universities, are eligible to apply. Festivals must be a 501c or connected to an established 501c. Similarly, first-year festivals must be connected to an established sponsoring organization, a 501c, that can show significant experience or long-term commitment to literary-focused programming. This sponsoring organization can be a library, a city or county government, a literary or literacy agency, or a college or university, etc. Florida Humanities runs each sponsoring organization through a program called GuideStar Charity Check to verify 501c status and to make sure your organization is in good standing. You also need an active SAM or unique entity ID number. The federal government replaced DUNS number with SAM numbers, which are 12-digit alphanumeric codes. If your organization had a DUNS number previously, it has been automatically converted without any extra required action from you. However, if you don't have a SAM number or you're not positive, we have a link on the grant homepage on how to access or obtain a SAM number for your organization. And for more clarity about first-year festivals, if your festival is inaugural, we ask that it is connected to an established 501c like a library system or a city or county government, and that you can demonstrate a long-term commitment to large-scale literary programming. So if your organization is funded, there are a few requirements from Florida Humanities to be in good standing. We ask that you submit some mandatory forms, including an event listing form and a final report 30 days after your last event. We also ask our grantees to be as communicative as possible with us and let us know if any changes occur or if you have any questions during the contract period. So now I'm going to talk about the application itself and some tips to create a successful one. Again, at any time, if you have questions, please place them in the Q&A box at the bottom bar and I will address them at the end, or they may get answered along the way. So the first major component of the application is a series of narrative questions. All of these fields require a longer multi-paragraph response. The questions cover the history and mission of the festival and/or the sponsoring organization, the festival's connection to the public humanities, an overview of the festival itself, the festival's target audience, and if you are charging any attendance fees, the promotional plans for the festival, details about any festival vendors and/or exhibitors participating, any community partners, including nonprofit and corporate sponsors who are going to help you execute the festival, and how you will evaluate the success of the festival. While each question has a character count, a more successful answer doesn't necessarily use the entire space. As with all of our responses, those that are well organized, clear, and concise are the most successful. For the narrative question about your festival's connection to the humanities, successful responses should provide a good amount of detail and concrete examples about the festival's connection to the humanities, whether it be in themes covered, topics discussed, or discussions themselves. This example on the right, and it's quite small, but I'll be sending out the slides to all attendees after so you can get a closer look. This example provides a broad overview of how the festival connects to the humanities through author panels and discussions up at the top, and then provides 3 examples of panels that utilize humanities topics directly. You can see in the first and final paragraphs here of the response are comprehensive about how the festival connects to the humanities and name 3 individually named panels about how the festival discussing youth immigration, historical fiction, and storytelling are all detailed in how those panels connect to the humanities. For the festival overview, we ask again that narrative responses be well organized and clear and address all of the questions in the field, as this narrative response has multiple questions in one. It is important to concisely highlight the need in the community for the festival and its goals, or what your organization would like to achieve by hosting the festival. You will also need to include information about the hosting format, so whether the event is in person, virtual, or hybrid, the venue or venues if you're using multiple spaces, or if this festival is virtual, which hosting platforms you are using, like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Both expected attendance and past attendance, either for the festival itself or related literary events if you are hosting an inaugural festival. Most importantly, we anticipate seeing a summarized timeline for all proposed activities and their implementation. A complete schedule of events is required as a supplementary document, which I will go over in a few slides. You can see in the example on the right that specific dates, as you can see in this 3rd paragraph here, and times are listed for the festival, attendance numbers up here, and the final paragraph addresses how staff and volunteers make the festival happen. Unsuccessful narratives are those that are too short and do not share enough information about the project or answer the question entirely. As well, if there are several discrepancies in plans from answer to answer, or the outline plans are difficult to understand and don't have reasoning or method behind them, those would also be considered unsuccessful. Again, there are character counts for each narrative question, but a more successful answer does not necessarily use the entire character count or a particular length. Most importantly, a successful answer is clear, concise, yet shares all of the necessary details. So as you can see on these 2 examples on the right for both target audience and attendance fees and promotional plans, these are 1 to 2 sentence answers that don't provide any concrete detail, and we consider these to be quite unsuccessful answers. After the narrative questions, there are a few required documents we will need from you. Each of these forms are separate submissions, as seen in the screenshot of the application on the right. All of these fields can support a multi-page document. The first is a budget form, which I will discuss in detail in a couple of slides. We will also need a complete event schedule with details about the panels, signings, and a list of participating authors. Brief biographies of confirmed participating authors are also required. These biographies should share some of the author's published works and how they will be contributing and participating in the festival. So listing if they're doing a signing or a keynote or the panels that they're sitting on. Next, we will need some examples of promotional materials. These can be flyers, posters, social media posts, press releases, scripts from radio and or TV spots from previous festivals, or the upcoming one that you're applying for. Alternatively, if your festival is in its first year, you can submit marketing from past literary programs. Again, This submission can be multiple pages in one, so you can create one Word document or one PDF with all of your marketing materials and submit it to that subfield. Lastly, we will need a sample evaluation tool. This tool showcases how you will measure the outcomes of the festival and ensure that your goals are met. Again, all of these documents are required, and you won't be able to submit your application or have it be considered complete if any of these fields are missing. We also have space for 3 supplemental documents. These are completely optional and not required for your application to be considered complete. As well, these submissions accommodate multiple pages in one upload field. These supplemental documents can be letters of support from community partners or corporate sponsors, previous festival or event advertisement, extra samples or pages of the required documents that I mentioned in the previous slide, or something similar. These fields are for you to use to enhance your application, but it won't count against you if you do not use them. So I'm now going to go into detail about allowable budget items and how to complete the required budget form. Florida Humanities will provide funding for a variety of line items. Again, applicants can request up to $10,000 in funding. We ask that you request an amount that reflects your organization's need for the festival. We recognize that budgets fluctuate as the festival moves forward and things change, so the budget form that you submit in your application is provisional only. We will analyze all budget forms submitted, and we prefer that costs are weighed towards line items that directly contribute towards connections between authors and readers, like honoraria and travel and per diem. Florida Humanities provides funding for author honoraria, travel and per diem for authors, technology costs such as virtual meeting platform subscriptions and related software, venue and equipment rental, publicity and promotion, and other. And other is exactly what it means. It is any other cost that directly contributes to the development and execution of the festival. While nebulous, all line items that are described as other must be detailed. So the budget form is a downloadable Word document located within the online application, as you can see here on the right. There are gray fields in each of the line items, and all fields can be typed in and are summed automatically at the bottom under total. On the right-hand side of the screen is an example of a completed budget table. On the top of the form, this pink box are the funds that you are requesting from Florida Humanities for each line item. Again, any totals included in the gray box are summed automatically. And as you can see, you don't need to request funding for each line item. So in this sample, this application requests funding for honoraria, travel and per diem, venue and equipment rental, and publicity and promotion, but nothing for technology and other. The bottom table is estimated cost share split up into in-kind and cash, and I will explain cost share in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. Again, totals you submit in the boxes sum automatically, as you can see here from cash and in-kind, and then those two sums total automatically here at the bottom. Successful budgets ask for exact detailed funds for specific costs as opposed to general line items that aren't for anything in particular. And make sure your requested funds, of course, don't exceed the $10,000 amount. So the second portion of the budget form is budget detail. As you can see on the example on the right, it is split up into details for requested funds from Florida Humanities at the top and cost share details at the bottom. On the form, you are not limited to the space on the page that you see. It will automatically add more space if you need to. Successful budget details describe every cost meticulously. We ask that you show the rates for each amount that you sum and of course how you got to the total. So you need to show a little bit of math. For example, in the travel line, the budget details $250 for 2 nights, you can see here at the top, totaling $500, plus an auto rental for 2 days at $250 per day. You should also clearly delineate between requested funds at the top and cost share at the bottom. And then within cost share, delineate between cost share that is accrued in kind and in cash. So as you can see at the top line of this cost share honoraria is designated as cash in upper case letters with $8,000 and then full details for each author's honoraria. So now that I have mentioned cost share a couple of times throughout the presentation, I'm going to go into more detail about it. Cost share or match are costs of the project, program, or event that are not paid for by Florida Humanities by a grant or requested funds, but instead are accrued using resources within your organization or from outside your organization. A minimum of a one-to-one match of your awarded amount is required if you are funded. So if you are awarded $8,500, you will be required to provide at least $8,500 in cost share. Cost share can be accrued through cash, in-kind services, or a combination. Cash cost share are line items that organizations pay for directly. So if I go back to the previous slide, you can see this budget directly paid for honoraria and travel and per diem. However, the venue and equipment rental, publicity and promotion costs, and other are in kind. In-kind services, in-kind are services provided voluntarily by another organization or individual that has a dollar amount attached, like volunteer hours or staff time or venue rental. For volunteer hours, we use the federal rate, and that can be found in the guidelines and in the application. Cost share can be accounted for example, through any costs not covered by Florida Humanities, like staff and volunteer hours. Cost share can be accounted for example, through any costs not covered by Florida Humanities, staff and volunteer hours, refreshments for authors and exhibitors, other grants and monetary support from other nonprofits and corporate sponsors, and among other costs. We have a more comprehensive list in the grant guidelines, but again, that's not comprehensive in itself. A lot of things can be accounted for in cost share. Like the grant funds, cost share is an estimated total. As we know, budgets fluctuate and change as the event grows closer. However, it should still be a minimum match to the funds that you are requesting. And while a minimum is required, we always prefer when organizations exceed the minimum in their cost share. So now I'm going to dive into how to apply for funding. If you have any questions at this time, please place them in the Q&A box and I will address them at the end of the presentation. So the first step to apply is to analyze your festival. Determine what elements may be a good match for funding and how you address humanities topics in certain events within the festival. All potential applicants must contact Florida Humanities staff to discuss the festival and receive an access code. Applications cannot be accessed without a code, which you can only get by having a conversation with a staff member about your festival. So please, emailing me or calling me and saying, hey, we would like an access code does not count as a conversation. We do need to sit down and go in depth about your festival, or if you'd like to do some emailing back and forth, that would be quite all right too. And please be advised that these conversations don't preclude organizations being funded. Next, apply online through the online application portal using the access code. If you have questions or get stuck while you're working on the application, we are happy to help either to provide clarity or technical support. All applications must be submitted at least 4 months before the first event of the festival. Once you have submitted your application, wait for a decision. Florida Humanities evaluators review applications within 30 days of submission and send decisions through the online application portal. So all notifications will go to the account holder of the online application portal account. The online application portal can be accessed through our grant homepage. If you need to create an account, instructions are available on the right-hand side of the portal login. If you have an account already, simply use your existing credentials. We cannot reset any information for you, but if you have forgotten your password, there's a link underneath the logon button to reset it. So once you log on, you won't see the application immediately. To enter the access code, type the code in the top bar, circled above, and click Enter Code here. The code isn't case sensitive. So once you enter the code, your screen will look like this. You can now access the application. You can preview the application by clicking the bottom on the bottom left with an eye and start an application on the top right in blue. This application can be saved and continued later if you need to. Just click the save button on the bottom of the application. So if you've sat through this presentation and you're thinking this opportunity may not be quite right for your organization at this time, don't worry, we have several other opportunities open at the moment. I encourage you to visit the website on screen, floridahumanities.org/funding-opportunities to check them out. And these are also available on our Florida Humanities homepage. And to be alerted when new funding opportunities are available and applications open, I also encourage you to sign up for our newsletters using the link here on the right. You can sign up for a particular grants and programs newsletter where you'll receive all information about our current funding opportunities and events you can attend. So that is it from me today. If you would like to reach out to set up a conversation about your festival, you can reach me at the contact information available on the screen, and I'm going to leave it up while I address all of your questions. If you have any questions at this time, please place them in the Q&A box and I will go through them now. Once you're ready to apply after a conversation with a Florida Humanities staff member, I would visit the website below, and I recommend bookmarking it for ease of access. So I can see I have some questions now. Oh, yes, this Zoom recording will be available later. All attendees will be receiving a recording, and it will also be available as a YouTube video on our website in the coming days. So I have a question here that says, are there set funding amounts, maximum limits, or minimums? There's no minimum amount. We advise that you request what you need. However, we will not be funding anything exceeding $10,000. That is the maximum amount. And how far in advance may we submit for funding? We don't have a limit of how far in advance you can submit for funding. The sooner you can submit an application for your festival, the better, because that gives you more time to prepare and Florida Humanities more time to evaluate your application and come back if there are any questions. But the minimum amount of time that you can submit an application is 4 months before the first day of the festival. So say that your festival is happening January 1st. The very last day that you can submit an application for your festival is September 1st, because we do need to give our evaluation teams at least 30 days to evaluate and discuss, and then enough time for you to sign a contract, submit forms, prepare marketing materials, and things of that nature. All right, now I see about participating author, we typically allow additional authors to register up until a few weeks before the festival to allow for as wide a participation as possible. Therefore, at time of grant application, we will have we will not have a full list of participating authors. Yes, I completely understand that things change. Authors may or may not be able to come, especially considering our current health climate. However, when you submit an application, we would like as complete a list as possible, or at least the authors that you know are definitely coming, particularly those hosting keynotes or participating in large-scale panels. We cannot fund anything where we don't know the details, so having as much as possible when you apply is best. However, we understand things change, and that's quite all right. See, another question that popped up, and does Florida Humanities require listing as a sponsor on event materials? And yes, for funded applicants, I didn't mention it in here because it's more to do with once you have received funding. We require both the Florida Humanities logo and the National Endowment for the Humanities logo to be on all publicly distributed marketing materials. So that's anything digital or print, so social media posts, flyers, bookmarks, whatever you make for the festival, if you are funded, does have to include both of those logos, and those will be available to funded partners once you've been funded. All right. So I've expended all of the Q&A questions. I see there's one that popped up in the chat. Oh, yes. Thank you. One of our Florida Humanities staff members said as well, a marketing toolkit will be sent to all grantees if you are funded. That includes both of those logos and the credit line. So if there are no more questions at this time, if you think of any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We also have some FAQs on our website. Oh, I see, excuse me, one more has popped up. It's not a question, it's a very kind note. Please reach out if anything, if you think of any questions in the interim. Again, please reach out first and foremost if you'd like to set up a conversation about your festival. The best way to contact me is email, as we work in a hybrid model, and sometimes I'm not able to respond to telephone messages right away. I want to thank you for your time today. This webinar was recorded and will be shared in full with attendees after the session, including a link to the slides so you can take a look at the examples that I shared on the screen. Again, any questions, please reach out. Email is the best way to get in contact me, as we work in a hybrid model. Again, it takes me a few days to respond to telephone messages sometimes, but my contact information is at the top of the webpage on, as you can see here, Book Festival grants. And yes, I thank you for your time. Any questions, please reach out, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon.